Hi everyone, and welcome to my International Women's Day series in 2021. We're recording this in 2020, so it's been a bit of a mad year, but I'm so excited about this series. And the first guest is my mum, Angie Ashcroft. Hi mum, Angie. What shall I call you for this? I don't know.
Hello. Well, whatever you feel comfortable with.
I really wanted to have you on this episode because I wanted to talk to you first. I think it was a great way to start the series by talking about how people choose different careers. And obviously you'll remember a lot of, this isn't going to be therapy, don't worry, but I'm hoping that you'll remember a lot of my childhood that I don't remember and how I made career decisions. You're pulling faces there, do you not know that?
Maybe.
Well, I thought it was interesting because obviously you have women who are minority in different fields, but you also have men who are minorities in different fields. And then I'm one of three, which obviously you know, but I don't know if any of the viewers will know that. I'm one of three siblings, and I am a woman who ended up going into the world of technology. I have a younger brother who went and did dance, where obviously men are a minority. And then I have an older sister who went into the childcare sector and is now a stay-at-home mum, but then is re-entering the world of work at the moment. So she chose a more traditional career path. So I thought it was really interesting because we obviously chose things based on what we were actually interested in as opposed to what the world told us to do. Do you think, this is a big question, do you think your parenting had anything to do with that?
I hope so. I would like to think that you didn't feel constrained and that you felt that you had opportunities to pursue things that you wanted to pursue. That would have been my goal.
Yeah. Did you notice when we were younger that we all, like, I don't know, you kind of see all on, it's mostly TV adverts, isn't it, that are selling like follow-on milk and things like that, but how you do things when you're a child which kind of make you, where you go, oh, they might want to do this. Did you have any of that with any of us? Like, was James always dance? I know James was always dancing up and down supermarket aisles when we were younger.
Yes. Even in the swimming baths, when he was supposed to be in swimming lessons, he would be dancing in the water. Yes. You were always interested in technical things. For a while, sort of chemical and scientific.
I always wanted to be a chemistry lecturer. I remember.
You did?
Little 7-year-old Alice, people used to go, oh, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I'm going to lecture chemistry at a university. Who did I think I was?
Well, hey, if that's your dream, go for it, Alice. But yeah, apart from that, you've always had a scientific leaning, shall we say.
Yeah. I don't know, I'd never planned to go into technology, I think is the thing though. I'd always liked maths, didn't I, at school? And it was of that sort of made me lean towards that. But when I was at school, there was no computing, it was maths and it was IT. So even in the couple of years between me and then my younger brother, who's 2.5 years younger, like the education switched to be less of a focus on using software and more to be on it building it. So I then chose IT at sixth form because that was the only option that we had. And then I wasn't quite good enough at maths to do maths at uni, but I enjoyed the logic. So I sort of just ended up, everyone was like, oh, you should do computing because that uses maths, but it's not maths. So I sort of accidentally ended up, for me, it didn't feel like a decision that I made. It felt like something that just happened to me.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't something you felt led to do or something you had an urge to do?
I don't think so. I don't think it was that because obviously I made the decision, you know, when I was like applying to universities, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and do this. So at that point, I guess it was a decision, but the decision was made based on the fact that I enjoyed maths, but didn't think I would be good at it. I suppose imposter syndrome made me choose computing.
I'm sure you would have been amazing at maths. Why would you not have been good at maths?
Not that you're biased or anything.
Biased at all, but you know.
I don't know. Yeah, it just seemed to be more of a, I don't know, I sort of accidentally ended up doing it, which is a weird thing to say because normally when you speak to sort of older people and they're like, oh, I never planned to go into this. I sort of accidentally ended up there. I seem to have accidentally fallen into a career at the age of 18. Like, I don't know how I managed.
No, you hear that quite often. Definitely, you hear that. And I think there are quite a lot, I don't know about your field, but there are a lot of jobs that you can't specifically train for and people end up doing. So, for example, I'm going more into instructional design, but so far as I'm aware, there isn't a direct degree route for that. There might be now, but so far as I'm aware, there isn't. I don't know. So I think a lot of people fall into things via other places.
Yeah, and it does seem to be quite a common way of ending up in a career, I guess. But I suppose, I don't know, do you feel like there's more of a lean at the moment towards people? I suppose it's the pressure that you do go, you know, you finish high school, you go to college, then you go to university, and it's that route. Whereas previously people might have left school at 16, trained, and ended up in one of those jobs kind of through training. Maybe. Do you feel like now people are kind of going into degrees and then falling into those things? I don't know what my question is here. It's less of a direction, I guess.
There are a lot more people going to university now than there was when I went to university. A lot more. There was a big push. I can't remember how long ago, about 15 years ago maybe, there was a big push from the government for more people to go to university. So they made lots of jobs and career routes university-led, whereas people would have gone and done an apprenticeship or... a perfect example is nursing. People have trained to be nurses for years and years in hospitals and have been fantastic nurses and had great careers. I don't know whether nursing's changed. I'm not a nurse, so I know nothing about it. But now it's a degree route.
Yeah, I think from the nurses that I've spoken to, only like anecdotally when I've gone for blood tests and things like that, but they, the older nurses that I speak to have seemed to say that they end up doing more now than they used. They have more responsibility, so maybe they need like more training from that. I don't know. It's interesting though when you think of women as minority, or I don't know, just minorities in general, I guess, in certain fields. How, if you've fallen into a career, are you more likely to fall into it if you're a minority? Do you know what I mean? Like if you are a woman in dance or a man in computing, are you more likely to not fall out of that career because you're not the minority? I did too many negatives there. If you're a woman in computing, are you more likely to fall out of that because you're the minority and end up doing something different?
I have read somewhere, I'm not an expert in the field of computing at all. I know very little about it, but I have read that a lot of women leave computing compared to how many men leave computing. I don't know whether that's to do with the culture or the fact that they are a minority, or I don't know why that is.
Yeah, there was a really interesting paper by a woman called Karen Holtzplatz, so you can look this up if you want to, everyone watching. There's this really interesting paper because she basically said that generally when people are researching why there are no women in technology, they go to the entry point and they start looking into why women aren't entering the field of computing and technology and sort of STEM in general. And it's all kind of in at that point, whereas people don't often look at why women leave, because generally there's this bottleneck of, okay, when you get women into a certain field or you get men into a field where they're a minority, they don't stay there. So she did this paper where she went and interviewed women who had left technology, and the results of that were really interesting because it was more about the culture and that kind of thing. And I just thought it was a really interesting, a different way of looking at the problem.
Yes, and an important way, just as important. It's no point in encouraging all these people to go into a career if they're not going to be happy and want to stay in it. It's just as important to make sure it ticks all the boxes for them and that they feel able to stay in it and want to stay in it. If they want to.
I think that's the thing. And
if they want to.
It's also having the flexibility to go, okay, I've done this for a while and I've changed my mind, and that's okay. And you can do that as many times as you would like throughout your career. It's okay to change mind, because you've done lots of different jobs, haven't you? Throughout your career.
I have done lots of different jobs. I started off temping, specifically because I enjoyed lots of variety. I enjoyed lots of different jobs, working in lots of different places, meeting new people, and that was a great thing to do. And it was very flexible as well, and that led me on to having my own business for quite a lot. I did that for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I had my own company for a long time, and then I went into teaching, and then after that I went into conversation design for chatbots, which is so gone round and round.
But then you did kind of end up as a woman in
as a
technology, but kind of through an unconventional route. So you didn't do an apprenticeship, you didn't do a degree, you did teaching about language, you have this background in English literature, and then you applied that to building conversations and chatbots. So you kind of did end up as a woman in technology, but without going the traditional route to end up in that role. How did you feel?
That's very true.
And maybe you haven't thought about this because you kind of just said, oh, that's very true. But how did you feel as a woman in that space, in this kind of field of technology, having not had much previous experience in that?
I loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I would never have. I mean, I'm obviously quite a bit older than you, and we didn't have computers when I was at school. Nobody had heard of Microsoft. It was new, and certainly at our school we didn't have computers. And I learned sort of at night school and things, word processing, and programming was never really mentioned to anybody as an option or a career, or so it just that. But once I found, I came to the office from a different route, from the English background, but once in it, loved it. What a great, vibrant, creative, interesting place to work. I was lucky. I was in an innovation group full of people thinking of new things, asking each other's opinions. I got listened to. If I had an opinion, people would go, oh yes, or maybe not, or but at least you were listened to. It was innovation and ideas was encouraged, so that I really enjoyed that. And it's sort of inspired me to carry on. Obviously I'm years behind people that go down the programming route, so I wouldn't want to do that now. I'd woe betide anybody tell me that I couldn't, but I'm choosing not to, because I'm stubborn, and if you tell me not to, then I probably will, just to spite you. But yes, I definitely love working in a tech type environment. And I want to carry on doing that.
I think it's interesting looking at sort of even within tech, like there's so many different fields, and sometimes similarly I've been in spaces, especially innovation spaces, where everyone's quite open and up for listening to your ideas, and then you step into, even within like the same department, you'll step into a different meeting and there's all this kind of, maybe it's, because I have a degree in computer science, but I don't do coding day to day. Maybe it's that, maybe it's the fact that I'm a woman, maybe it's the fact I'm young, I don't know. But sometimes I'll step into a space and I'm not taken seriously and I'm not listened to. But then you start to doubt yourself, because there's all those different things it could be. It could be my background, it could be my age, it could be my gender. There's all those things. And like there's so many things working against people that you then start to second guess yourself. And I guess that's where imposter syndrome comes from, when you don't feel like you belong in a space when you have every right to be there.
That's definitely true. Absolutely true. And being my age, I've encountered that all the way through. And I've almost got to the point now where I don't notice it, which is terrible, because it's just the norm. And it's not right, and I shouldn't ignore it, and I should stand up to it and challenge it, but I don't always notice it. And it's great when there's people like yourself coming up who will point it out to me, so that I can go, hang on a minute. So it's really good that women now feel empowered to encourage each other as well, and challenge stereotypes. But definitely.
I think that's so important. And there's a paper which I think I've mentioned on, spoiler, I record these episodes in the wrong order, but there's a conversation I have later in this series where I mention a paper by Nicola Rollock, who's done lots of research into Black female professors. And I hope I get this number right, but I think there's only 12 in the UK. So she got a great sample size of 100 because she was able to, or was it like, I don't know, one less than this full sample size because there weren't that many women to interview. And she spoke to them about the issues that they had sort of progressing through academia. Because to only have 12, Black female professors in the UK is not enough, even proportional, Is
it a lot less proportionally?
Significantly less proportionally.
Right.
So it's really not great. But her research, she spoke to these women about the barriers that they'd face, and one of the things that kept coming up was how white women aren't making space for Black women at the table because there's only one space for a woman and they want it.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important that you mentioned that women can build each other up. And so when we were in a meeting and someone explained how to do your job to you wrong, and I afterwards I sort of went, did you realize they did that? And you went, I didn't even notice that. I think it's really important that women do point these things out to each other. Or if if I spoke over you in a meeting, or I spoke over a different woman in a meeting without realizing, I would hope that they could, maybe not in the meeting, or maybe they should in the meeting, I don't know, but then afterwards say to me, like, do you realize that you did that? And I think it's about having, I guess, awareness about what you're doing and what other people are doing and what's changed, what's not changing quick enough, all that kind of stuff.
I think there's a lot that I can't speak for all ladies of my age, but there are ladies of my age, and myself included, that could learn a lot about how to deal with these things in the modern workplace, because we started working 30 odd years ago when the workplace was a very different thing, and you couldn't stand up for yourself because you just lost your job, basically. So now it's a thing that you can do, and first of all we need to notice it when it happens, and we need to know how to, and we need to be careful that we don't step on anybody else to be the one female place, which I might do without knowing.
It's hard.
Who knows? I wouldn't know.
It's really hard, I think, to know when...
I don't know if I do it.
It's hard to know when you're
not,
when you're in a position like that. Like you say, there are now things that you can do to kind of say, hey, this isn't okay, this isn't happening, but we're still not there. And the fact that obviously things are getting better, and that's really great, but conversations like this still need to keep happening. And I mentioned several times throughout the series that we shouldn't need an International Women's Day, but we do still need that, because because we're not
364 of them. We have one. Woo.
So we shouldn't need it, but we do, because we're not quite there. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have this series and to interview so many different people, and just get their perspectives on it, especially because they're all kind of women from different fields where women are minorities. I think hopefully it'll be a really good series, and hopefully everyone will really enjoy watching it.
I'm really interested to see who you speak to and what sorts of things they talk about. I'm really excited to see what happens. We had a day last year at church, and I wanted to do something for International Women's Day last year at church, and they're a great group at church, but even when I mentioned it then, people would say, well, do we need that now? Are things not equal? No. Sorry, they're not. No, because we have how many bishops out of how many, how many female bishops are there? We have some way to go. Yes.
So hopefully this series will sort of, I know there's lots of noise and there's lots of conversations happening, but I think even if this contributes a little bit to it, then I'll call it a success, I think. So
Super.
Thank you for coming on the first episode. I hope everyone's enjoyed watching it. My mum has an Instagram account where she posts lots of mindfulness things, so make sure you go and follow her over there. And I really hope you enjoy the rest of the series. Thank you so much for watching.